rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence in honor of our veterans, servicemen and women, and those who have given the ultimate sacrifice. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson? Here. Councilor Kamel? Here. Councilor Condon? Here. Councilor Crowe? Councilor DeMaria? Councilor Matheson? Here. Councilor Murphy? Here. Councilor O'Malley? Here. Councilor Spatafora? Here. Councilor Winslow? Here. Councilor Seeker?
Here. Oh, you need one? Under the provisions of the open meeting law, for those of you in attendance, please be informed that MATV, John Mayara, Prisco Tomorrow will be recording tonight's meeting. So please be aware there will be audio and video recording of this meeting. First order of business.
Julian Orsini, Chair of the Malden CPC, will appear before the City Council to present the bonding recommendation for the Roosevelt Park CPC funded project.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Council. I believe you all have in front of you the bonding recommendation. Is that correct? No? Yes? Okay. No? No? Okay. So this is, I've come before you to talk about the 8 FY19 projects. One of them was Roosevelt Park. We made a recommendation for $250,000 to sort of jumpstart the project, and then looking at a bonding for 10 years for 1.45 at 4.5% interest. I just wanted to come and sort of present this. I believe the mayor has sent down his order. Yes? Okay. I'll just, if it's fine with you folks, I'll just read the recommendation. 4.25. Yeah. Under authority of Chapter 44B, the Malden Community Preservation Committee is recommending a bond of 10-year term for $1.45 million at not more than 4.25% interest to fund the CPA eligible aspects of the Roosevelt Park Rehabilitation Project as applied for in 2019 by the Malden Redevelopment Authority. This bond recommendation is in addition to the $250,000 Malden CPC funding recommendation that was previously submitted and accepted by Malden Mayor Christensen and the Malden City Council. The Malden CPC has voted that the Roosevelt Park project must include the outdoor classroom as stated in the FY 2019 funding application. The Malden CPC has voted that the Roosevelt Park project must include the drainage improvements as outlined in the original proposal and must be made to the surrounding wetlands. Although Malden CPC funds are not available for any synthetic turf option, the Malden CPC has respectfully requested that the applicant consider several alternative synthetic products as new technologies enter the synthetic turf market. The applicant has agreed to consider an alternative in the municipal bidding process. So I just want to, I know there's been a lot of spirited conversation around this particular project, and I just want to make it clear that what the CPC is asking for is a bond around specific elements of this project: the fencing, the netting, the benches, the dugouts, and again, the classroom and the drainage. So I just wanted to present that to the City Council and answer any questions that you may have.
Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, can you tell us about this outdoor classroom that you referenced?
Within the application, there was an element of an outdoor classroom.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
It's where they bring the kids to kind of have an environmental experience.
And that's part of the bonding request here? How much of that is the outdoor classroom?
It was $75,000. It was listed, it was a line item within the application for $75,000.
Okay. And did this bonding request get approved by 2/3 of the CPC?
It was a 6-to-1 vote. Yes, it was approved 6-to-1.
The bonding piece of it, not the approval of the project, but the bonding?
That's correct.
Okay, because I understand that that requires a separate vote. It's also going to require a 2/3 vote of this council.
That's correct.
And then, am I correct in understanding that if we were to bond against future CPC dollars, then we can no longer repeal the CPA, at least while there's outstanding bonds?
That is not correct. So
okay.
you could.
That's something I heard when we were talking about Malden Hospital, and some councilors had some reservations about ever buying against CPA funds. And that was one of the reasons that I heard, I believe Councilor Spatafora raised that. So how does the rule work?
So the rule works that you, is it a law?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Statutes of laws, yeah.
Yes, can be revoked, and that all the monies, and I'm not an attorney.
Yeah,
all
but
the
if there's
monies.
outstanding debt,
Correct.
what, it would be assumed by the city?
No, it was assumed by the fund. So the 1% setback will continue until all is, whatever's outstanding is paid off. So it takes all the reserve monies.
Right.
Takes all the reserve monies, that's paid forward.
The 10% that's allocated to the other statutory allowable items, like affordable housing, is that what you're referring to as the setback?
No, that actually stays in those. The 1% setback is the 1% on the property tax.
Okay.
So it's a set aside.
Understood.
Yeah. And then within the reserve account, so everything in the reserve account is applied to whatever's outstanding.
Right.
And then the 1% remains until the bond is covered.
Okay. All right, good. And how much is this bond for?
1.45 million over 10 years. Is that better?
1.45 million over 10 years at 4.25% interest.
Would you? I have 2 copies. Would you like
Yes,
a copy?
please. Thank you. That's all I have, Council President. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Julie, did our treasurer, Jonathan Davis, get a chance to sit down with the CPC or Chuck Ranigan about the financing package?
Yes, we did.
So just a question. I mean, right now in overall reserves for the committee, over and above what's already been committed, what is that reserve right now, approximately?
The reserve amount?
Yeah, I mean, money that has not been, obligated to this. I mean, you obligated a certain amount of money in the first round.
Correct.
There's money that are in the reserves account. What is the money reserved right now?
So what we put together is called a CPA bond capacity spreadsheet, and my apologies. I'll make sure to send it out to all of you. I have a copy. My printer was running out of ink. I'm happy to share this with you. So what we actually did is looked at the impact to the entire fund. So not just the reserves, but the entire fund for the 10-year term. Looking at that, we can pay this off, and we could grant $500,000 every single year from what I call the principal of what's coming in, not even the state match, and we will end up with $4.5 million at the end of that.
So, okay. And then in terms of, I don't know if Treasurer Davis talked about. I know I had worked on CPA in Gloucester, and we did a bonding for their stadium project there, and they were actually able to essentially through principal avoid even really taking out as big a bond as they had anticipated, because they were able to pay with current funds. Is that sort of what the CPC would look at in terms of if a project takes a few years to fund the ongoing work in that way? Is that anything that was discussed with the treasurer? Or?
We did not discuss that with Mr. Ranigan. So we actually met with Controller Ranigan.
Okay. Yes,
and we had a bonding training session with Stuart Saginaw, who's the executive director of the Community Preservation Coalition.
Okay.
Again, I'm happy to this may help, because what we actually did is we broke out each year the impact to the overall fund. So we didn't break it out by reserves. And looking at this, again, we would end up with $4.45 million at the end of 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, the type of technique, it's a way to also help reduce the interest that we would pay. So like I say, I think Gloucester, they authorized like a couple $1 million in bonding, and then in the end, it was only a $500,000 bond, that type of thing, because you're kind of paying as you go. So it's just something to be aware of as a city and as a committee, that because projects take time, I mean, that $100,000 a year, if we pay that before we pay the bond, we don't have to pay the interest if we paid it during the flow or that type of thing. So just something we should be aware of. It's a way to save some money. I mean, that's, $4,000 a year, that type of thing. But
so what if I may, so what we did look at is we compared the 10-year bond to the 15-year bond, and by going with a 10-year bond, it saves the fund about $150,000. And additionally, one thing that we will have to do is every year look at the debt service, because the debt service, as Councilor Matheson pointed out, hits the 10% reserve. So we got to make sure that we're still hitting our 10% reserve.
Okay, but great. I mean, I really appreciate all the hard work the CPC has done here, and I know we had a community meeting at Salemwood last night, a lot of input, and I think, I expect we would refer this to finance and, consider the information we got at the meeting last night and figure out the best way to how to go forward for the community. So appreciate you coming out tonight. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
Julie, thanks for coming. Thanks for all the work you've been doing on this. And I'm sorry, probably going to repeat a couple of numbers.
No,
1.45 million, 4.25 interest over 10 years. Yeah, thank you very much.
Lisa's making copies for everyone right now.
Two questions. So that if, assuming we paid it equally, is it something somewhere around 178,241?
That's correct.
And 28 cents?
Very good.
Okay.
That's exactly what it is.
Around there. Where do we get the 4.25? Is that the market?
From Controller Rannigan.
So he went and got it.
Yeah, he ran a bond scenario for us.
Right.
Yes, market.
That's really, I just wanted to make sure I had those. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you for coming before us. State again what it's for. The outdoor classroom, I know that. You spoke about drainage. What else?
The last point that we put on the bonding recommendation is that technology within the market, within the synthetic turf market, has changed dramatically. So we have requested that the applicant look at an additional synthetic alternative. So there's the crumb rubber, there's a lot of different alternatives. So we've asked them just to maybe look at 2 synthetic alternatives versus just 1.
But CPC funds can't go towards that.
That's correct. Yeah. So we're respectfully requesting.
Okay, the drainage must be different for a synthetic field versus a regular grass field, no?
That's correct. I believe so. Yeah.
I would have to assume so. Do you have any idea what the difference is in the cost if we're doing drainage for a grass field versus drainage for a synthetic field? I'm trying to figure out where this 1.45 is actually going.
Councilor Spatafora.
I believe Mr. O'Neill, who is the engineer on this project, is in the back. So instead of putting Julie on this spot for numbers, he can probably tell you much better.
Come on down.
Well, I mean,
Yep. We always have the phone. I'll put it on.
Oh,
Steve, I'm not sure if you could hear me back there, but
Yeah.
I was asking about the difference between the drainage on a grass field versus the drainage on a synthetic field. And ballpark, what are you looking at for that?
Yeah, well, I guess first I'd step back and say that the CPC is looking to fund the large majority of the project cost, with the exception of the synthetic turf itself. So the synthetic turf, if you will, is everything from the resilient pad that will be below the carpet and the infill. So the funding that will come from CPC towards this project would fund the earthwork associated with the project, and that would include the removal and disposal of the urban fill. That's really one of the most significant single costs associated with the project. It would include the construction of what we'll refer to as the drainage layer, which is a layer of crushed stone with subdrains at about 30 foot on center across the entire area of the field. And that is a drainage system that's required to support the synthetic turf. It also would include what we refer to as the choker stone, which is a finer stone that gets put atop the drainage layer that then gets fine graded. And that's the surface that from there up is the synthetic turf surface, if you will, that is not eligible for CPA funding. It will also fund what we are referring to as the outdoor classroom. In that, to expand on Councilor Matheson's question, there's an area at the park now that's a small area that's got some benches. It has some community gardens, and we'll be looking for opportunities to improve that area so that we can get better and more meaningful use out of that space. It also will include, there's a wetland at the park that's an integral piece of the park's drainage system. It's really become overgrown. There's a lot of trash and debris in there. There's a lot of dead and down trees. There's plant material that has, it's non-wetland plant material. So an element of the project that will be to clean up that wetland and make it, I would say, a better functioning wetland and a better performing component of the site drainage system. Also, as part of the project, there's, as Julie had mentioned, there's all of the perimeter fencing. There's the fencing that will be necessary for the two softball diamonds, the backstops, the player benches. We're going to make the player benches accessible so that the people with disability can use the facility. So really, any non-synthetic turf surface component of the project, including the soft costs, the investigations, the design, the construction administration, would be funded with the CPC money.
So if this turned out to be a natural field, natural grass, would you be going through the same process on the drainage that you described?
Yeah, really to deal with one of the major challenges at the site is the drainage. So if we were going to build a sand-based natural grass field, we'd have a sand layer. We'd probably have a gravel layer. We'd probably be looking more at, we'd have an underdrain system. It may not be designed identical to what you would design for the synthetic turf surface, but it would be very similar in nature to what you would put for the synthetic turf. The other factor that would drive if it went to a natural grass field, the amount of earthwork that would be required would be significantly greater. Because right now what we would have to do under a synthetic surface is we'd have to remove about 15 inches of the urban fill, and that's intended to provide separation from the surface to the urban fill. If you go to a natural grass surface, you would then have to remove 3 feet of the urban fill. And that material, so you're taking out close to 2.5 times what you would have to take out for the synthetic surface. So the drainage component would be similar, yet not identical.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Reason why I asked you that, because I know it's become very controversial, whether it's going to be synthetic or natural grass. And remains to be seen which way we're going to go with this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. Ms. Orsino, I'd like to say to you that I respectfully respect your respectful request. But I want you to know and the audience to know that prior to this request, the mayor, myself, Council Winslow, and the entire team that's been working on this have brought in a landscape architect, a sports architect, and he has come in with many, many different types of infills. And we are, as a group, have been since day one and continue to be today, looking at all the options of different types of infill. There is no, we are not set that this is going to become rubber. We are looking at what will provide the best performance, the best heat reduction, and the best playing field, you know, for the students of Salemwood School and also all of the athletic players. So rest assured that's something that is definitely going to be in the bids that we put out. So we feel very strongly about that as a team. So
Thank you.
anyway, and I'm glad the CPC still feels the same way.
Yes, we do.
So with that, this is not tonight a request to bond this. This is a request to actually send this to the Finance Committee so that we can have further discussion. So I would make a motion that we move this to the Finance Committee and that we continue our discussions there. So.
Although we're not technically on that.
Sorry. I shut my microphone off, so.
Oh, okay, that's right, we're technically not on that.
We're only at announcements
we're at
right now,
announcements,
so
right.
you
But
can
anyway,
make that motion
I
as
will
soon
make
as
that
that
motion.
paper is before us.
But let me make it clear that is the intent. The intent is not to try to pass this tonight.
Okay.
It is to refer it to Finance.
Great.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
No, you're right.
Councilor O'Malley.
I'll keep my comments brief, and I'm happy to hear that we aren't going to try to pass it tonight. I think that one of the reasons why this has become a little bit of a controversial topic is because we have done the public input after the fact. And I think that it's important that we make sure that going forward, the CPC as well as the council do the public input and information gathering beforehand, because I think that as a community we're all developing a certain level of trust with each other after years of other activities. So it's important that we build that trust together. I'm looking forward to doing that with you all. And I think the fact that the organic infill is something that is looking like it is more likely to happen, I think would go a long way in building that trust. So I'm looking forward to hearing that discussion and whether or not this increase in funding, while it cannot be utilized for that directly, will allow it to be indirectly used for it through the other funding sources that the city has tried to obtain. So thank you again for all the work you've done.
Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to speak, I think we've talked enough about, how we're going to refer this to Finance and be much debate about that, so I think that's great. I think the overall picture is, I want to thank the CPC committee, Community Preservation, the CPA committee, simply because, it was passed. It is a tax. It's 1%. Nobody likes paying more, but projects of this magnitude, meaning just to look at the drainage situation there, whether it's grass or artificial, would never happen without this pot of money. But also, Julie and the rest of your team, I don't want to just single you out, the dedication and commitment and organization that you have shown to all the things that you went through and the transparency in those meetings that you had here it should be applauded. Because it's not easy when you have a pool of money and you have a bunch of people and organizations that want a part of it, and you have to make sure that money goes to the right reasons and the best use, because it's not infinite. And the other thing is, it came up yesterday, it is a pot of money, but it is only for certain uses. You know, one of my pet projects was the rebuilding of Wallace Park, and for those who don't know what that is, that's the park that's just next to BB, and one of the applications was to do those stone walls over, but unfortunately, the application wasn't complete, and you needed better numbers, and I know you supported it, but your committee shot it down until such time as you come back with better numbers, and I think that speaks to the process that your committee, nor this council, are just rubber stamping projects. While they're all good, we have to be very careful with the amount of funds in there for obvious reasons. So I just wanted to publicly thank you and your committee again. I know you were at the meeting last night. I know you go to a lot of these meetings, and this is not going to end. We're going to continue doing this and hopefully put that money to use on projects that cover the entire city. But it's not a slam dunk on everything. I think that's the biggest thing. So that's all I had to say. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I don't want this opportunity to pass without saying that this Roosevelt Park is a park that certainly is in need of and deserving of the kind of restoration and overhaul that we've been talking about. I think we should all be feeling grateful that we've got the money available to do the work, that park is the park that I grew up. I lived right down on Plaisted Road up until I was in high school, so I played in that field and know that that's another gem for our city of Malden. So I'm pleased to support this going off to the Finance Committee for us to make sure that we look at all the options and moving this project forward. So full steam ahead, and thank you to the committee for its recommendation. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
We are good, I think. Everyone all set? Okay, thank you. Next order of business.
Councilor Winslow will give the council an update on the status of the work, long-term transportation study committee.
Yeah, I'll try to make this pretty brief. All right, got me. I know back, I think in January, we passed an order and worked with the mayor to set up the committee. So that committee was formed, and it's Councilor Spatafora, Councilor Crowe, and I, along with Brendan Connor, David Sendalenica, and Carrie Pike, have been meeting over the past few months. And you know, we've kind of looked at some various issues. And I know we were committed to try to come back by April, so that's why I wanted to give an update so people know where we're at on that. And we've come up with some preliminary things, and particularly, you know, one of the things we looked at was what other communities do in terms of their traffic commissions, and who is the composition of those. And we looked at our surrounding communities, and we looked at Arlington, Brookline, Cambridge, Everett, Medford, Melrose, Revere, and Somerville, in terms of what they're doing. And out of the 9 communities, including Malden, 7 of those communities have public representation of residents on their traffic or transportation committees. Malden and Revere are the only ones where it's strictly staff or other appointees. So I think one of the recommendations going forward would be to, as we're looking at our city charter, to look at the composition of our traffic commission and look to see broaden the representation of that. If you go back and look at the legislation that created our traffic commission, it really focuses on vehicular traffic. So that's one of the things we've looked at. We looked at and you know, to broaden that out. So you know, that is one of the things, one of the recommendations we've talked about. The other thing we looked at in those 9 communities is how many of those communities actually had transportation staff. And again, out of those 9 communities, 7 of them had transportation staff, some of them many transportation staff, but again, Revere and Malden were the only ones that were not, did not have transportation staff. So I'm pleased to say that the mayor, we had our Sustainable Transportation Forum in March. The mayor at that time announced he's working and he plans with the budget to submit a budget that would include funding for a transportation planner. So we're hoping that that will be the case, and that we will have someone to work on the issues, like we know, like all the requests we have for the bus improvements and other transportation needs that are creating a lot of demand. So that's one of the recommendations, and I wanted to particularly announce that to the council because I know it's going to be coming up in the budget, and that way you can have some context in terms of, what other neighboring communities are doing. So it's not unusual to have that staff. So I wanted to make sure you all knew that, when you see the budget come out, that's why that is there. I have been working with the mayor and, looking at other communities in terms of what the task that transportation planner does, and working to craft sort of a Malden-specific job description. So that you'll see that coming forward. The other thing we looked at is just in terms of a lot of communities have advisory committees. We have a walkability committee, the mayor's walkability committee. So that's something that other communities actually have some advisory committees on transit or on bicycling. So I think that's one of the things, maybe looking at our walkability committee and how we expand that committee's role. So those are just some of the major things. The other thing I just wanted to say is that we sort of got halfway through the kind of questions we were asking other communities, and the committee, we're going to meet again a few times in June to sort of wrap up the report, but we're sort of halfway through the report. But I wanted to just update people on particularly those things in terms of some things related to the charter, because I know the charter committee is going forward in terms of things that are related to the budget. So I just want to give that update, and I think it's an interesting process, and we're drafting the report, and I just want to make sure we're reaching out to the mayor's office and internally to make sure. I mean, these are some political shifts and shifts in the way we do some things. We want to make sure we've worked that through within the city, government, to make sure we have people on board for that. So I wanted to give people an update on that. I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments, but just want to give an update. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
I'll try to be brief also. I think it's great that Councilor Winslow in the committee is looking into this. As he mentioned, we are looking into our charter to see how we can kind of modernize that a bit. And I think that every councilor up here can testify to the difficulty sometimes of navigating through the traffic commission, not because of the people, but just because of, I think, the entity of itself and how it's been set up. I don't know if most Malden residents realize, but all traffic in our community is not controlled by the city council. It is, as Councilor Winslow stated, controlled by the traffic commission. So that comes down to speed limits. That comes down to whether or not your street is a one-way or a two-way. It determines whether or not you have citywide parking or not citywide parking, stop signs, mirrors, the plethora. So it makes it very difficult to do proactive traffic planning. It also makes it really difficult to do small things like put a mirror up at a corner. So I think having this committee more thoroughly looked at, to have more residents on that committee that can bring that perspective rather than just having staff on it, I think would be a huge bonus. So looking forward to continuing to work with your committee and as we review the charter. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to echo the thoughts of Council Winslow. I sit in the council with the committee with Councilor Crowe, but I think Steve's passion, Council Winslow, his passion for alternative methods really show in this committee, as well as the two, I call them civilians, but they volunteer their time. And we talk about alternative methods. Everybody knows one of my pet peeves is just getting around Malden gets harder and harder. So we're looking to, make the accessibility to buses and walking and bike, whatever method to do. And we're doing it in a way that is, we debate a lot of things. We realize we don't live in a new city like the western part of the country. We live in an old city that's urban and the streets are small. So we have to work with what is there. But the committee has met several times. We actually, one time, were locked out of the building, so we met in the stairs. But I think it's thankless work because it's not something that comes out right away and it's methodical. But we are modernizing our rules and regulations, and just if we could just make a couple things better, it would have a huge improvement, I think. But it's a gradual process, and I think Council O'Malley mentioned too is some things are not under our control by charter. I personally don't want it under my control, but as Councilor Winslow mentioned, the city's making the right step to bring in a professional transportation director, and I think we probably need more than one, but it is a step in the right direction to really start putting a plan in place that not only includes the way we build buildings, public safety, but also the way we get around this community, and more importantly, how other people can come in this community as well. So I want to applaud Council Wenzel and my fellow Councilor Crowe for their time in the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else? Okay, next order of business.
Next order of business, public comment. We have Kathleen Sullivan, 27 Olive Street, talk about the Roosevelt bonding.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Kathleen Sullivan, and I just had a few questions and comments about the Roosevelt Park, which is on the docket for tonight for the bonding. So I wanted to ask, when was the vote for this bonding taken place? When did it take place? I attended the meeting on April 9th. My colleagues attended the meeting on 4/23, and there was no package finalized at either of those meetings. Actually, on April 9th, there was actually a lot of confusion amongst the members around the bonding. One committee member suggested maybe that the applicant needed to reapply with more details of costs and requested more community input. A few members were also confused about what they voted on previously in January. They asked, did they vote on $1.3 million for 7 years, which included the $250,000 for the startup costs, or did they vote on $1.3 million for an additional $250,000 for the startup costs? The member also felt that the applicant should not be dictating the amount the CPC is willing to offer the project. In January, the CPC offered $1.3 million for a 7-year bond. The applicant came back stating to the chair and the treasurer that they really needed $1.8 million in addition to the $250,000 for startup costs. I also wanted to ask, how will the yearly maintenance and the $450,000 to replace the turf once it ends its useful life, how that will be funded? And I also wanted to ask a question that my neighbor, who is a civil engineer for the state, asked last night. If the drainage system of the entire field and the surrounding area, apparently the drainage system goes underneath the school, and having a lot of experience, she suggested that possibly the whole drainage system has failed since the school was built over 20 years, and suggested possibly doing a camera investigation to see where the cracks might be. It may alleviate the entire, or a lot of the drainage problems that exist on the field today. I also wanted to suggest, as a member of the Salemwood community who have been very hurt and distraught over this whole thing.
Ms. Sullivan, that's time.
Okay, I just want to say one more thing.
Well, your time is up.
All right, well, I would appreciate it if we had been involved, okay? And I would also appreciate it if you had involved the families. They were not invited to the community meeting last night. And they were not invited in their own language, which is probably between 10 and 20 different languages. So that's the reason the families did not show up. They were not invited. It was not on the city calendar either.
Thank you. Kathy McDonald, 11 Fairview Ave, Roosevelt Park issue.
Good evening. My name is Kathy McDonald. I live at 11 Fairview Ave. I'm a lifelong Ward 5 Malden resident, first grade teacher at the Salemwood School, and a grandmother of 2 young boys. I begin with this quote from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy." I believe this is one of those times. Although I'm a lifelong Malden resident, I've never felt the need to come to a committee like this to address a need like I see. Last night I attended the Ward 5 community meeting to discuss the renovation of the Roosevelt Field. At that time, Brian DeLacy stated that a field that size could require 20,000 to 40,000 tires. Yes, 20,000 to 40,000 ground-up tires. I found that fact very concerning. There are questions surrounding the safety of crumb rubber when it comes in contact with young children. The students at the Salemwood School range in age from 5 to 15. They would be exposed to this artificial turf for 9 years. These same students live in the area and will be playing on the field, running, and they'll also be doing their organized sports for additional exposure to this area. Many questions arose about the safety of this turf. Some people had specific medical questions surrounding this turf. There was a toxicology expert there last night. I didn't feel that this expert was able to alleviate the fears that people had. In addition, there was a lack of input from the Salemwood community. It just seems that plans were made without talking to one of the stakeholders. I realize that the school does not own the field, but I believe that when the school was built, adjacent to the park was to allow for the 12,000.
Thank you, thank you,
Okay,
Ms. Sullivan.
thank you.
Time's up, thank you. Chris Raiello, 10 Prospect Terrace, road work, pending road work.
Good evening, councilors, Madam President.
Good evening.
My name is Chris Riello. I live at 10 Prospect Terrace in Malden. I'm here to talk about the proposed road funding. I understand there is a paper that's in process, and so this is timely. I recently moved to Malden, and to be honest, I was kind of shocked at the conditions of two streets. The street I live on, which is Prospect Terrace, as well as Prospect Street. Prospect Street runs between Pleasant Street and Fellsway East. It's about 1,000 feet. And Prospect Terrace is a small side street, which is about 200 feet off of that. In addition to just the poor conditions of these roads, which I have provided some pictures of to the President, of the roads which are down to gravel in many places. The pavement, the asphalt is completely worn away in many places on this road, making the conditions difficult for driving as well as walking. Prospect Terrace has no sidewalks, so the children that live on that street, even though it's a small street, the children that live there have to walk on the street, and there's lots of bumps, and it's a difficult street to walk on. Residents have been calling to ask the town to put this on the paving list for years, but unfortunately we just found out that it is not on the 5-year plan. Neither Prospect Street nor Prospect Terrace are on the 5-year plan for repaving. So the residents got together, we signed a petition. There's around 30 to 40 names on the petition. I provided a copy of that, and the petition is requesting that the council and the mayor and the town officials put Prospect Street and Terrace on the priority list for repaving. Also, some of the residents are here with me to show their support. We have, raise your hand, 5 of the residents of both Prospect Street and Prospect Terrace. So I want to emphasize that both of these roads are excellent candidates for repaving, and that we would also like to point out Prospect Terrace is one of the roads that has lead water mains. So we are very anxious to get those replaced as soon as possible, and we ask for your help and support in, first of all, making sure that Prospect Terrace...
Thank you, Mr. Rail. Time's up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Next order of business.
Approval of the minutes for April 30, 2019, and May 7, 2019.
On Councilor DeMaria's motion to approve the minutes. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The minutes have been approved. Next order of business.
Okay. You have outdoor parking, Andrea Citos, 29 Madison Street, Malden. Andrea Citos, 25 Florence Street, Malden.
On Councilor, all of them? Yep. On Councilor Murphy's motion to refer these petitions to license. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The petitions have been referred. Next order of business.
Taxi driver, Rochelle DeStacio, 201 Charles Street, Everett, Mass.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to refer the petition to license. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The petition has been referred.
I don't know if it matters, but it's Chelsea Street, just for the record.
Chelsea Street. Thank you. Next order of business.
Be it hereby ordained that Chapter 4 of the revised ordinance of 1991 be further amended by adding Section 4.43 to prevent wage theft by public contractors.
Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, this is a proposal so that when the city is entering into public contracts, that we do some due diligence in terms of making sure the contractors have not had violations of various statutes related to paying wages in a timely manner and a fair way. So many other communities like Chelsea and Medford have passed this. So, and I did actually check in with Chuck Rannigan and Nick Pernice, who deal with a lot of our procurement things. And some of these practices are already the type of things that we're doing, making sure we check with workers to making sure they're getting paid fair wages and benefits. But this would, by ordinance, make these requirements, and it would not necessarily prohibit some contractors from being contracted, but they would have to sign additional certifications and do more due diligence in making sure that when contractors are working for Malden, that they are paying fair wages. So, that's really the proposal, to make sure, you know, when we get state money or federal money, there are requirements to make sure that the wages required by state and federal law are being paid. This just makes sure in those world where it's municipal money, we are making sure that the state fair labor laws and wage laws are being followed. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilor?
Yeah, good, great.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you to the sponsor. As we discussed, I would also like to be a sponsor of this paper. A few years ago, when Chelsea was the first community in the state to pass a wage theft ordinance, it was heralded as a very proactive and progressive thing to do. Making sure that any public construction, whether that be roadways or our water mains or our buildings, we're using contractors that treat their employees fairly and actually pay them what they deserve, and don't hold that back from them unfairly, and use that as leverage is crucial. As more and more communities do this, it will put those bad actors out of business, or they will change their ways. So I am fully in support of this and look forward to sponsoring it with you, Councilor Winslow. One of the things I would say is that you probably want to refer to ordinance. So I will move to refer to ordinance.
Sorry, Councilor Anderson.
Yes, thank you to the sponsors of this paper. Are you suggesting that the contractors that we are currently dealing with aren't adhering to these? It seems to me that the contractors that do business with us are required to pay prevailing wage. There are regulations through our purchasing department that they have to go through. Are you suggesting that they're not going through that now, and that this would be something that's needed?
There's requirements when we're spending federal and state money.
Correct.
That there are a lot of requirements that apply, but it's not to every contract that we do. So this would just make sure that in every contract we do that. So it broadens it, and there are requirements like under federal contracts where people do get asked their wages. That's not necessarily a requirement of state law, and we don't necessarily in our bids right now put in something about certifying that you've met these practices. So this is doing a lot of things. If it's a state contract or federal contract, we have to put in. But if it's simply spending municipal money, we're not necessarily putting these into our bids. So this is just to, in some ways sync up our standards. I don't think there's necessarily a problem, but I think it's good to make sure that it actually will also provide some defenses. Like if a contractor is found to have this, if we don't have this in our ordinances, it could be challenged and that type of thing. So it makes sure it gives us more legal backbone in making sure that we are hiring contractors that are paying fair wages.
I guess I raised the question.
Yeah, so, yeah. So.
Because if there are issues that are going on that we're concerned about, then a paper like this seems to me to be very appropriate. You know, but if we're not finding that, I mean, this almost seems to be something that this is something I would expect all of our purchasing and all of our contracting to go through. I know when we deal with things with the redevelopment authority, I know that they are making sure that people are paying prevailing wages. So I guess I'm just questioning why we put papers like this on the docket if you're not seeing an issue or you're not perceiving that there's an issue that's coming up. That's my only question. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilor Anderson. Councilor DiMaria.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President. And I do applaud the sponsor, Councilor Winslow, for putting forth this fair and very thoughtful paper. I think there is value in it, and I also look forward to discussing it further in ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor DiMaria. Councilor O'Malley, okay. You sure? Come on.
Just to Councilor Anderson's comment, which I think is a good comment, I think that the issues that we face with wage theft is that they're not going to be a documented issue. It's going to be things that are happening, let's say, under the table. And it's not going to come to our attention. By putting it on the contractor to certify that they're not doing these type of potentially illegal practices, puts the onus on them to make sure that they're following through. It also allows us to have a defense if something were to come up.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
So, yeah, and to response to Councilor Anderson's question, I will, in ordinance, I know that the Attorney General's division on fair labor practices does keep records, and I can find out the Malden specific ones so that we can have that information going forward. There are literally millions of dollars in restitution that employers are paying related to wage theft that the Attorney General helps recover, and some of those are in Malden. So we can look at that as well. But I will have that information for when we have this in ordinance. Thank you. Great.
Councilor Anderson.
Yeah, I just want to not leave an impression on the part of those who are listening that we've got contractors that are doing that. It doesn't seem to me that that's what's happening now. I can understand being proactive and wanting to make sure that we're all very, very supportive of labor unions and making sure that the employees get paid fair wages, but I don't want to leave anyone with the impression that unless that's what the sponsors are suggesting, that there are contractors that we're currently doing business with that are underpaying or not paying their employees the fair wages, or as it's mentioned here, to prevent wage theft by public contractors. I don't think that's what's happening here, and I'd hope that that is not happening here. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have a motion to send it to ordinance?
Ordinance.
Who made it? You made it? Oh. Okay. On Councilor Winslow's motion to refer this matter to rules and ordinance, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The matter has been referred. Next order of business.
Order that the City of Malden enter into an agreement with the Malden Arts for the installation of a mural on public property located at 110 Pleasant Street.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. So as you know, the last year or so, Malden Arts has went through a substantial fundraising campaign, raising over about $100,000 to roll out what will be called the Art Line in Malden. So far, we have one mural on Exchange Street at Fitzgerald Park, which is called the Ed Emberley mural. The second one that has been secured, I believe, is public knowledge. Maybe it's not. The second one we have to keep a secret until it's announced. I don't want to get in trouble for that. And then the third one, which I guess is now the second one, it will go on 110 Pleasant Street, which is our current Building 2 of City Hall, or Building 1 of City Hall. This would allow the city to enter into an agreement with Malden Arts to have that mural made. It would cost the city no money, and it will be part of a regional outdoor art and sculpture park that I think will bring a lot of visitors to Malden. I appreciate your support on this, and I will leave it up to the committee, to the council as a whole, to discuss.
Councilor DiMaria.
Thank you, Madam President, and I echo what Councilor O'Malley and I are sponsoring tonight. Again, what I want to drive tonight is this is at no cost to the city. This is just to allow the mayor to and the Malden redevelopment to move forward with the beautification of 110 Pleasant Street. As you all know, Malden Arts has done great work in our city and is a wonderful asset to us. So I believe this is in Ward 4. So as Ward 4 Councilor O'Malley and I are putting this forward. So I believe we would like to make a motion to pass this on the floor this evening. Second, anybody? There are. Okay, sorry.
Well,
thank you.
Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, thank you. And I certainly like public artwork. I remember in the past when we were doing a Switchbox program, we took the responsibility very seriously to know what kind of content was being put out there in the public space. So I'm wondering if the sponsors have any information as to what the content is or what the mural is going to look like. Is there anything like that for us before we vote on this? Is it going to committee? And those are my questions through the chair to whoever wants to address it, either Councilor DiMaria or Councilor O'Malley.
Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you. The Malden Arts put out a request for proposals for murals. This particular mural would be inspired by Spirit in the Sky, a song by
Norman Greenbaum, lived in Malden.
Malden resident. And so that's what it would be inspired by. It will be done by a professional muralist. And if we would prefer to refer it to public properties to review that, we can. I believe there's a little bit of a time sensitivity on this, that we would like to pass it on the floor, but it will be tasteful. Malden Arts has a requirement, and the city's not going to allow anything distasteful.
Sounds good. Thank you for the information. I didn't think they would allow anything distasteful. I just like to take the responsibility seriously. I wonder if the sponsors would be amenable to sending this to citizens engagement. That's what we always did that work in the past. That doesn't take it out of the hands of the mayor or the MRA or anything like that, but it would certainly involve the council in the process. We could meet with the artist and take a look at the rendering and approve it that way. I would really appreciate seeing it go through that process, but regardless, I think it's a relatively good idea. I also appreciated it as an ancillary point when they put in public murals underneath the MBTA bridge, because then you're taking a piece of urban blight, which is usually like some old stained stone or concrete, and you're adding color and something beautiful to it, really turning it around. But I can see why you'd want to put this in the square so it's visible to the public, and I think that's great. Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate the folks in Malden Arts. I know they literally got inundated with requests for murals, I think over 200. Really amazing that they worked through this and now have kind of distilled it down to, I think they're working on 4 this year. It's amazing what they're doing here, so very supportive of this. I'm open to either passing it tonight or having a little bit more due diligence. I see what the sense of the council is on that, but I know they are, there's some urgency here because there's a lot of work being done, and these are all volunteers that are working on Malden Arts, so I think that I wouldn't delay it too much, and I would like to see this somewhat expedited, but a little more due diligence, it would be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. Obviously, we all feel the same way about Malden Arts. They're an amazing group, and it brought so much, joy to the city. I mean, I know I stop at a stoplight sometimes, and I watch the snow uncover one of the switch boxes, and I'm just in amazement to see it again. And the work they've put into the Malden Art Line is just incredible. It shows their dedication to the city and to their craft. So I am fine with passing this on the floor tonight. I love the fact that it's Norman Greenbaum, and it really brings it back to its roots, along with Ed Embley. I mean, I just think, getting our history up on a mural or on any type of a park or a wall or a sculpture, whatever it is just going to be so much fun to walk around the city and see them. And like someone just said, a pop of color is wonderful. I would like to make sure that the council, because I think we're all excited about this, and it's going to affect all of us and all of our constituents. So I would like to, the city council to somehow continually be updated on what's going on and how it's moving forward, and so we can see some renderings, and we can actually, kind of feel the excitement and be part of the process a little bit. But I'm happy to pass the order tonight for the mayor to enter into an agreement, or the mayor and the MRA, so.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Yes, echoing the great compliments to Malden Art, I think that goes without saying. They've been doing some great things. And I think each of us here on the council has already contributed some of our own ward money toward their activities, and I think going forward, I certainly would be willing to do more of that. So I support the idea of a mural there on public property. I do think, however, that we ought to take a look at the mural. We ought to be encouraging more murals, and I think we are, but I don't think we should just say go ahead without us having some, at least a look at it. And I don't think it should take much more than a week or so. I'd like to see the mural come before us, and I see us voting it positively and letting it go forward. But I do think it makes sense for us to at least get a look. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to echo the rest of the council. I mean, Malden Arts has been an incredible organization. I know other communities. I don't know, I won't name names, but it starts with an M and it's pretty close to us. I know they started doing similar art projects. We play them in football. And I have to say our switch boxes are 2,000% better than them. It literally looks like amateurs versus pros, and it not to be condescending, but they truly take a time to pick, the right process for the box, and they make sure that it's done in a tasteful manner. And I think every council donated to Malden Arts in some shape or form to help reach that goal, which made the art line possible. With that being said, though, I do take a fiduciary responsibility. It is a public building. We send everything else to public properties, regardless of what it is. It's not a good way to start precedent. I agree with Councilor Anderson. Send it to public properties, and then we can review it and have it out in a week. I just think that we have the ability to do it. I don't mean to stall the process, but again, it's part of the process. It's a public building. We can't just forget about our rules. So we send it to committee. We can have it next week, and then it will, I think, suffice to Councilor Anderson and myself. We get to see the mural and then approve it on a quick turnaround. So my suggestion would be change the motion just to send it to public properties. Okay.
Councilor DiMaria.
No, I just wanted to say that's absolutely fine. Thank you, Councilor Spatafora.
On behalf of the chair, I too think that this is a great idea. This is one of 2 or 3, I think, that are in the works with the Malden Arts right now. The other few are not on public buildings, so they don't need to come before us for our approval. Is Candace around? Has anybody spoken to Candace? This isn't going to just delay it a week. It's going to go to committee next Tuesday, and it's not going to actually come out to the floor till the following Tuesday. So that's actually a 2-week time frame. I thought I saw Candace here earlier. She's at the CPC. I would just hate to send this to a committee and it backlog them for 2 weeks, not just one. Judging from the Ed Emberley mural, I am for anything that they put. I think that is absolutely amazing, and I hope that they put a mural down in Linden Square somewhere along the bike path. So Councilor Spatafora.
Can we just, I believe Maria Louise went out to check on that request.
Yes.
Can we just table this and move on, and then if we have to send it, we will. But I don't want to stall the stall the process, or maybe we just make a quick motion to table and we'll come back.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Okay, Councilor Spatafor, oh, sorry, Councilor Kamel.
Sorry, it's just a technical question. Can't we docket it anyway? Can't we hold the public property before committee of the whole, and then docket it for committee of the whole?
We could. Do you want to?
Okay.
Okay. I was just trying not to do anything that we weren't supposed to. Okay. On Councilor Spatafora's motion, oh, Councilor Anderson.
Yes, I would say we should just suspend docket rules for next week and deal with it, so we only have a week delay. You know, I think that the Malden Arts would be glad to show it to us and so forth. I don't think we need to rush so much that we can't hold off a week. I think.
Are you okay with that, Councilor Matheson? You're fine?
Committee of the whole next week?
Committee of the whole, that's right. We just.
That's okay? Okay.
So we're tabling it for 1 week.
I'm hesitant. I'm
Yeah,
hesitant.
table it for 1 week and we can do it next week.
It will go to public properties.
We can do
Okay.
public property before the meeting.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Do public property before the meeting, it'll be on the docket, and we'll act on it. I don't believe anyone is in opposition to the mural. I just think it makes sense for us to
You
have
don't have to
a look
suspend
at what
docket
it
rules
is
if you
that
put it
we're
on the docket.
approving.
It goes to committee on the docket. I'll change that rule. I haven't done the changing of the rules yet,
Should
so
ask
I will
Candace to come
change
before
that.
us, Madam President.
Okay, we're good for 1 week, Councilor O'Malley? Okay. Okay, so who made the motion to refer to public properties? Councilor Spatafora, okay. Councilor Spatafora's motion to refer to public properties. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The matter has been referred. Next order of business.
Order that $1,450,000 is appropriated to pay the cost of design and construction of Roosevelt Park, and to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the mayor, is authorized to borrow said amount under Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, or any other enabling authority. And in conjunction therewith, the mayor and the treasurer are each authorized to enter into one or more loans and/or security agreements, and the mayor is authorized to contract for and expedite any federal, state, or other aid available for the project, including any grant related to such project, and to take any other action necessary to carry out this project. All premiums received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any such premium applied to the payment of cost of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of cost approved by this vote in accordance with Mass General Law 44, Section 20, thereby reducing the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs by like amount. The repayment of such a loan will be made by utilizing available community preservation action funds to Mass General Law, Chapter 44B, as previously authorized and approved by the Malden Community Preservation Committee. David Kamel.
Councilor Kamel.
At this point, I would like to move to refer this to finance and continue the discussion there.
On Councilor Kamel's motion to refer this paper to finance, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The paper has been referred. Next order of business.
Order that the city treasurer and the director of the parking department appear before the city council to report on parking meter revenue and cash collection policy.
Councilor Matheson for the paper.
Yeah, thanks. I put this on the docket because this is a new source of revenue for the city. We haven't had parking meters in the past. And I remember when it first came up back in about 2015, we had some presentation from the mayor's office and Ron Hogan about how much revenue was expected to be generated. But now we have some actuals that we can look at, and we can talk about how the cash handling is taking place. It's actually a pretty pertinent topic since we're talking about roads and the need for road funding. So it would be good to know what we can expect for parking revenue year over year. And I don't know whether the treasurer or Ron Hogan is better for that presentation, but they can decide, and they can come before us and let us know how that program is working. So, yeah, I'd like to pass this order and have them back in 2 weeks. That's my motion.
Councilor
Thank you.
Winslow.
Yeah, no, so we're going to have them come before the full council. I just wanted that clarification. That's what you like. Yeah, I'm supportive of that. Thank you. Great.
Nobody else wish to speak on this paper? I do. From the chair, I'm not quite sure if this is an order that we do want to pass. We had Ron Hogan in on February 5th. Everybody was in attendance, and he actually did a slideshow presentation of everything that is being discussed in this order. I think at this point in time, with budget season and all our committees bogged with papers, that this is probably not something that is hold on. I'm not quite sure that this is something that we need to have Ron Hogan or the treasurer come in for at this time. We just had this presentation on February 5th of this year that discussed the revenue. Councilor Matheson.
Yeah, so I could see that there's some cash control in here. I'm just wondering what the revenues have been, because when this came out, I don't think we had a very much history behind the program. So I'm just wondering how the meters are doing. I don't think it's going to require much of Ron's time, and I don't know if Ron has any involvement in the budget, does he? He's the parking director, is he not? I know he's strategic planning too, and he presented the water mains, but
I just feel like it might be a duplicate of what we've just heard from just about 2 months ago. He spent over an hour here discussing how much money the meters are generating and so forth.
how much do they generate?
I think he said $1,400, roughly $1,400 a day. Councilor Kamel.
Right, there was additional information besides this. It was pretty comprehensive from what I remember. I don't remember the exact numbers, but we must have copies of that we can.
I pulled that.
Distribute.
I had that in my folder, but I think that he discussed in detail
Yeah,
how
we
much.
went back and it was showing for every year that parking tickets were issued, when they.
The excise taxes, all that, yep.
Okay, well.
I apologize, Councilor Matheson.
No, that's quite all right. And this isn't, I'm not asking anyone for excise taxes or parking tickets, only the performance of the parking meters, because it's a new program and we don't have a full year of actuals in front of us. So if you think that's duplicative and somehow harmful to the city, you can vote against it. But, you know, I think it's worthwhile, and I don't think it's gonna, I think it's right in his wheelhouse as parking director. So, thank you, that's the motion.
Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Madam President, and, oops, is it on?
You're on.
I am. As far as I can remember, I think Mr. Hogan quoted $1,450 per day, and that's about $42,500 a month, best of my memory. So I think there was some information that came out of him coming forward. I think he was one of the first guests that we had this year. January kind of came and went, but I think he was the beginning of February, is that right? I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt, but I think we'll probably be hearing from him during budget season. He might be one of those that we do call in as a new department. So we'll be discussing that in finance, which should be in a couple of weeks anyway. So whatever the wishes of the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. I would ask the sponsor if maybe this would be acceptable to you. As with anything, Councilor Matheson has brought up a good point. This is a new program. As with any budget, things are seasonalized. Things change over time. You might have more parking, as the snow is gone, et cetera. So that revenue might increase. As opposed to having Mr. Hogan come in for the moment, could we just ask him to give us an update of the revenue, send us a spreadsheet that we could look at, and then if we feel necessary to bring him in to ask questions, we could. That might simplify the process a little bit because we are all squished for time. And I think he probably has those figures readily available. Would that be a reasonable approach?
Councilor Matheson.
Yep, I'll amend my motion to have him report back instead of appear before the council with those revenues. And if Councilor Anderson would second that motion, that's the way we'll handle it.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So, quick question from the chair. Do you want to say by July 1st, since we'll have a full year of the meters? The meters were installed last July, so maybe we could get a little...
I think 9 months would be good.
That's fine?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I think the first, or at least current.
Well, he had mentioned the first year. He had mentioned the first year of revenue, so July will be a whole year that we've actually had the meters installed, so I wasn't sure if that was... Councilor Murphy.
If I may, I wouldn't want to wait till July 1st because I think, as Councilor Matheson pointed out, this is something that will be integral with the budget because
Okay.
it is revenue coming into the system. And I think even if we just see the first 10 months, it will give us an indication of what's happened. And as I say, everything in budget is seasonalized, and we're going to see ups and downs. You know, there will be an average, but there will be certain months that will produce more revenue, so.
Okay, great. Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. I actually, with the power of technology, I actually have a copy of Ron's original presentation, and it shows no revenue in January, February, March, April, and then revenue started coming in April. So I'm assuming it's about a year now, right? It's been a year, so I think the meters are doing that. But to Councilor Murphy's point, I think, and to the other councils, I apologize, I was trying to see if I could get it on my phone. I have no problem with the numbers coming in, but I would rather have Mr. Hogan coming in during our normal budget process with a full deck, because then we can tick and tie those numbers to where they are going in the budget process. I don't mind an update, but I also want to have him come like any other department head and say, first of all, he's going to ask, this is my wishes, but then we can say, here's all the revenue, here's all the expenses, and then where that it goes. So we just put them on the same schedule as everybody else maybe first, because I don't want to have them send us a deck, we read it, we forget about it, 2 weeks later or 2 months later we have them come back. I would rather say, how much did you bring in the last year and where does it reflect in this budget? I know it's general fund, but I'd rather kind of follow the money, as they say. That'd be my suggestion during the budget process. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. I agree with Councilor Spatafora. I don't think you want to see figures up till July, but I'd like to see them June 1st, some real solid numbers with projections for the month of July. And then, you know, maybe expense things out, you know, what was brought in versus last year's money brought in, expenses to see how the department is performing. I'm sure Ron could give us a spreadsheet with the numbers up till June 1st. I'm sure he'll be called, we'll probably get the budget the end of May. So he'll be coming in sometime in June, so maybe he can come in with those figures. And that's, I think, the best way to do it for the finance people.
That's in 2 weeks. So
yeah.
That's consistent with the motion.
Yeah.
Councilor Kamel.
Yeah, I just wanted to absolutely confirm, as a department head, I'm absolutely going to be asking him to come into the finance, and we're going to go over all of this stuff as well, just to confirm what Councilor Spatafora was saying. So, good point, and we're definitely going to look at it in depth.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion from Councilor Murphy.
Well, actually, I was just asking the chair.
We amended the motion to have it produced in 2 weeks. And the paper.
And which would be June 1st, which would go along with the council appointment and such.
Precisely.
So
Yep.
I think we're kind of all on the same page. It'll give us the document to be able to look at the budget, so.
Okay, so it's an amended motion by Councilor Matheson.
I withdrew the first motion.
Okay,
Make
to
a
have
motion,
Ron Hogan update us.
come back in 2 weeks with revenue figures for the parking meter program.
Okay, update us on revenue for the parking meter program. All those in favor? All those opposed? The order has been adopted. Next order of business.
Okay, I have a committee report that the mayor be authorized to enter into a contract with the tax-exempt leasing company for the purchase lease of a ladder truck and engine for the fire department. Councilor Camille.
Councilor Camille for the paper.
Yeah, we had the fire chief come down and
Sorry, hold on. On Councilor Camille's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor? All those opposed? The committee report is received. Councilor Camille for the committee.
thank you. We had the Captain Finn, the fire chief, and as well as Chuck Rannigan, the controller, come down and update us on information. Basically, we are looking at we need to replace aged equipment. We need to replace an engine and a ladder that I believe were 20 plus years old, 20 to 25 years old. And this will be, and I'm sorry, I don't have the figure in front of me. I believe it's $1.5 million that they're looking to replace these pieces of equipment with. They'll be placing the existing that are getting replaced as reserve, and so I ask that we approve this as a matter of public safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Di Maria.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you for that committee report, Finance Chair Kamel. That was moved out unanimous. We did have Chief Finn come in, and this is a lease to own, and it should last about 10 years or longer. We also have the old equipment that will be kept in the firehouse for backup with other communities. So, you know, again, as I share this concern with all of you, that there's nothing more important than safety of our residents. So, thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Matheson.
Thank you, Chair. I love our fire department. I think they do a terrific job. Great personnel, great equipment. I remember the last time we bought a ladder truck, it was about $1 million. And the way I understood it to be is that we have 2 ladder trucks, and then we take the third one, which is the oldest, and that's our reserve standby, and we share that with the town of Melrose. Is it City of Melrose or Town of Melrose? I don't know. Yeah, it was City of Melrose. So I love Malden. North Malden. North Malden. So I'm wondering now if this leaves us with the 4th ladder truck. I mean, to the sponsor, if he knows, I'm not trying to put you in the hot seat. And if there is a 4th ladder truck, do we sell that for salvage? And if we sell it for salvage, I mean, I've got to be imagining this is probably a 10-year-old truck, and it's got to be worth some good money. Any information like that come out of the committee? Okay,
Councilor
that's
Winslow.
fine. That was my only question. I'm going to support this paper.
Actually, the ladder that we use is actually a Melrose ladder. It's not a Malden ladder.
Okay.
And it is the one I actually misspoke. It is actually 25 years old, and it is actually not working at the moment. And there is very little resale. First of all, it's not our resale value. It's Melrose's resale value. And there really is not a lot of resale value on a piece of equipment that old. So this will be our turn. We'll take our 20-year-old ladder, and we will now share it with Melrose.
You anticipated my follow-up. Thank you so much, Councilor.
So that's kind of how that's gonna work. So.
All right, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
I was just going to respond, so Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. Want to thank the finance team. I don't sit in finance, so I know this was something that they worked on. I know this is something also I think we're paying out of the general fund rather than debt, which is something that I don't recall us doing in the past, but with such a large expense. The trucks are expensive, but obviously very important, not only the public safety of the residents, but also the safety of the firemen. People don't realize that there is, I don't know if it's an expiration date on those ladders, but they have been known to crack and tip over, unfortunately. But I think the unique thing about this is I had the opportunity to talk to Deputy Sullivan, and a lot of communities are starting to do this lease to own program because of the capital requirements, but more importantly, they're following the footsteps of cities like Boston, where They're buying multiple pieces of equipment at the same time for a discount. You know, if you buy more than one, hopefully you get a discount. And also, they're buying, I don't want to call it off-the-shelf fire trucks, but they work with a company that kind of makes a standard fire truck. Most people don't realize when you put an order for some of these trucks, you have the ability to put all the accessories on. And, you know, firemen are like the average consumer. They want to put all the bells and whistles, which gets expensive, and also the timeline to build them drags on. So I know that Deputy Sullivan and I had a chat. They copied what Boston did, and they bought multiple vehicles, kind of the stock, and then we put all the accessories on after. And it helps them get their equipment, keep the residents safe, and we do it in a fiscal way. So I think this is the first time we're doing this. I think this should be applauded as well, because it's something that we're always doing. It doesn't happen once, and that's what I really see as the power in getting this equipment, because we get to buy two this time. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. And now I actually kind of answered the question, but had something I wanted to say.
No
and actually,
problem.
part of it was what Councilor Spatafora just said about this is the first time that we've ever gone into a leased arrangement. And I just wanted to mention a couple of things about Chief Finn and Deputy Chief Sullivan. They did a tremendous amount of work. They tried to get grants. They exhausted all avenues before the city had to spend any money on equipment. This equipment takes, just to give everyone kind of a perspective, you're not going to see a new, even though it's kind of a stock truck, you're not going to see a new fire truck in Malden next month. It actually takes a year. So that was one of the reasons why they wanted to get this passed through, because it's a year out before we'll even get these two pieces of equipment. The other thing is I lost my train of thought on the third topic. Oh, they got, this is a new company, okay, compared to the old company that they've worked with. Boston is using this new company. They visited all the different companies, cities that use this company, and it's basically, we're saving about 20% on this purchase over what the company that we have always used in the past. So from an interest rate, from a cost reduction, and from a leasing perspective, we really have come out on a win on this, and I just hats off to Chief Finn and Deputy Chief Sullivan for really doing their homework on this. So I'm in total support of this.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, no, and I'm very supportive of this too, and I really do appreciate the work of the chief and the deputy on this. I think we're getting a really good value. This is really something necessary. You know, this is a major piece of equipment for the city fire department, and these do last 20 years. And our equipment, you know, our newest one is 18 years old. So we're trying to make sure we get something in place before that one is really ready to become the backup. So, I mean, I think we also asked the chief, you know, our engines, we've replaced those more frequently and that type of thing. So, so it is trying to make sure we have a long-term capital plan related to this, but this is a good deal, really a 20% discount, a really good financing rate, 3.54% on the lease. We heard on the CPC, we're looking at 4.25% for a bond, so it's good lease that way, and you know, it's a really good and necessary thing that we're doing, and really to keep up our fire department. We had Chief Finn in to the Public Safety Committee, and we are like a Tier 2 fire department trying to become a Tier 1, and this will be one piece of you know, advancing that along with some you know, some improvements in how we handle some information. But you know, we are Malden's an important regional fire department, and this is a really important piece of equipment for the safety of our citizens. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor O'Malley.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, I think as has been pointed out tonight, it's important that we get ahead of our maintenance schedule on different devices, different equipment that we have in the city, the replacement schedule, and obviously for fire apparatus that not only keep our community safe, but also keep the men and women who are operating that equipment and fighting the most dangerous fires in Malden, keeping them safe. I do want to highlight that, because sometimes this organization gets bad press locally, this particular purchase was made possible by the Metropolitan Area Planning Council's procurement department, so that's MAPC. So the whole reason why we were able to take advantage of this type of purchasing agreement was through a bulk procurement through the MAPC group. You know, I think that they are a great group. They're a little bit misunderstood here locally, and I think if we're able to take advantage of some of the programs that they have, we'll be able to save a lot of funds in the long run. Fully in support of this and looking forward to vote on it finally. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
Yeah, I just wanted to just follow up to Councilor Murphy's good point about it's going to be 12 months before we get the equipment. It's also going to be, that's when we'll actually be fiscally impacted by it. So we're not going to be paying until we actually have the equipment. So it is a year out before that hits us fiscally.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora.
Yeah, and there was one more thing I forgot to mention in the conversation, and it was in the news, which is relevant. So the trucks in Boston had this company not only design them for their needs, but more importantly, their streets. So the trucks on the fire truck, those jacks that come out, if you are in the North End or East Boston, you cannot put those jacks down all the way because there's cars parked on both sides. So Boston made the trucks more narrow and the jacks are smaller. And why is that important? Because cities like Malden have similar style, you know, not everywhere in Malden, but parts of Ward 1 where there's old style streets, you couldn't put a fire truck up in certain streets in a safe manner. So they're picking back off that technology that Boston made. So I think that's important to reference as well.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
My last time, third and last time. But Councilor Winslow, I'm just going to kind of reframe a comment that you made that Malden is a Tier 2 town looking to be a Tier 1 town. Sometimes that makes people think, oh, we're not number one or we're not good enough. I'm an old insurance underwriter, and there are actually 10 levels. It's called ISO levels. So a Tier 1 is like the absolute highest you can be. A 10 is when, like my camp in Maine, it's going to burn to the ground before anybody ever gets to it, you know, so it kind of gives you that disparity. So we are actually, Malden has recently become, in the last few years, an ISO 2, which is one of the highest ratings you can possibly get. So I don't want anyone to walk away thinking that we are not safe. We are one of the best, you know, best protected towns from hydrants, fire apparatus, the number of firemen, fire stations, etc. It's all done by the Insurance Services Office, and they come out and they look at everything, and they give you this rating. So being a 2 is very, very, very good and very hard to get, too. So just want to make everyone comfortable that, you know, we are in good stead here. It's not that we're, you know, really lacking anything. There's only 1 or 2 ones, right? Yeah, there's only like 1 or 2 ones. There's not many. We are in really good company. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Condon.
Thank you, Madam President. I was able to attend that finance meeting, and I was so impressed with our fire department people, the way they went at it and their effort to secure this fire truck at the cost that they did. I believe it's a 5-year payback, if I'm not mistaken, on a purchase lease, that once we start paying in the vicinity of $350,000 a year, and be paid off in 5 years. But the company they dealt with before was the only game in town, Pierce. And they found this other company, and it's really paid dividends, and I thank them for their efforts, along with Chuck Ranigan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On Councilor Kamel's motion to adopt, seconded by Councilor Matheson. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The order has been adopted. Next order of business. Oh, roll call, sorry. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson? Yes. Councilor Kamel? Yes. Councilor Condon? Yes. Councilor Crowe? Yes. Councilor DeMaria? Yes. Councilor Matheson? Yes. Councilor Murphy? Yes. Councilor O'Malley? Yes. Councilor Spatafora? Yes. Councilor Winslow? Yes. Councilor Seeker?
Yes. The order has been adopted. Next order of business.
It's a committee report finance paper that the sum of $51,960.48 be in the same as hereby transferred from salary reserve to the following accounts. legal account 14,141.92, mayor's office salaries 11,851.84, information technology $9,938.76, PIPS salaries $9,504.56, public facilities salaries $3,738.28, and Board of Health salaries $2,785.12.
On Councilor Kamel's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor? All those opposed? Councilor Kamel for the committee.
Thank you. So this is related to our HR director, Mr. Ciccarelli, had done or had led an effort to do an internal review to make sure Malden is meeting state law in terms of equal pay for based solely on gender. And these are several positions that were found to, by the assessment, to require an adjustment. And actually, it is 5 of them are female, and 1 of them is actually male. The law says that based on the work that you're doing, not necessarily the title, but the actual work you're performing on a daily basis, that that people need to be paid an equal amount regardless of gender. So they did the internal assessment for the city of Malden, and by doing this, this will protect us from any claims in regards to this for 3 years. And I welcome any additional questions or debate.
Councilor Matheson.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, HR Director. I think this is just a wonderful thing. Those of you who have followed the budget process year over year, this is an issue that has come up several times. Some of us have gone to bat for the city attorney, the city solicitor. You know, one of the criticisms there was that she was underpaid comparatively with other departmental directors, but also relative to other solicitors in similar communities. I advocated for her. I'm happy to see this happening. I think all of us here agree that equal pay, regardless of gender, is an important issue today, and Malden has taken a step to make sure that we're compliant. So this is great. I intend to support this.
Thank you. Councilor DiMaria.
Thank you, Madam President. I, too, will be supporting this paper. This is very great progress through our HR director that this law came into effect only less than a year ago, July 1st, 2018. And we jumped onto the review through Anthony Ciccarelli. It was great to see that they're not only all women, but 1 man that had a pay equity concern. It is something that I did look at last year as council president. The reviews and the pay is so important that we pay our people. I mean, that's what moves the city. So I am in total support of it. I applaud our HR director for taking this on, as well as our administration. This is something that is just a terrific thing. And at the end of the day, it's $51,000 in total. So I just think it's terrific. So thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, no, I really do want to applaud the work of the HR Director Ciccarelli on this. You know, this was some issues that I know that had come out to the council several times, and it just seemed to be kind of tied up. And this really is breaking that logjam. It is really important that people be paid fairly for the work they do, and I think it's a great thing, and I think we can all support this. So thank you, and I will be supporting this. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilor Winslow. On Councilor Kamel's motion to adopt, seconded by Councilor Matheson. The clerk will call the roll.
Councilor Anderson? Absolutely. Councilor Kamel? Yes. Councilor Condon? Yes. Councilor Crowe? Yes. Councilor DiMaria? Yes. Councilor Matheson? Yes. Councilor Murphy? Absolutely. Councilor O'Malley? Okay. Councilor Spatafora? Yes. Councilor Winslow? Yes. Council President Seeka?
Yes. The order has been adopted. Next order of business.
Okay. Committee report on various license papers. Do you want me to do the
Do them all
individual?
except the last two.
Okay. So I'll do pool tables, AOH Division 12, 259 Charles Street, one table, it's a renewal.
Keep going.
I do the taxi driver, Donald F. Porter, 25 Sherman Street, Everett. Outdoor parking, Andy Service Center, 356 Lebanon Street, Malden, 12 spaces.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to receive the committee report, all those in favor? All those opposed? Committee report is received. Councilor Murphy for the committee.
Thank you, Madam President. These three license requests have been reviewed by the License Committee. We have found them all to be in order, and I would respectfully request that the council grant these petitions.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to grant these petitions, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? The petitions have been granted. Next order of business. Do I need a motion?
You can just say you want to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Somebody need to make that motion for
I'll
me?
make a motion that you recuse yourself.
Okay. On Councilor Murphy's motion to recuse myself from the next two license, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? I am recusing myself from Regano's outdoor parking permits because he is my uncle.
Okay, and we need someone to take the chair. Somebody needs to.
Just here, Regano's. These two, that's the only two left. So we have outdoor parking, Regano's, 1081 Fells Way, Malden, 20 spaces, a renewal. We have another Regano's, 1152 Eastern Avenue, Malden, 10 spaces, also a renewal.
Once again, the committee has reviewed both of these licenses. We have found all to be in order. They were passed out of committee unanimously, and I would respectfully request that the council approve these petitions.
On Councilor Murphy's motion to grant these licenses, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Licenses are granted. Next order of business?
That's it.
Docket is clear.
You did it both at the same time. Is docket clear?
We're done. Yeah, docket's clear.
I'll let the president say.
Councilor DeMaria, did you wish to speak?
I did. Okay. Thank you, Madam President. So first of all, I hope everyone had a great Mother's Day. That's a high holy holiday for us in my house. So happy belated Mother's Day to everybody. I also want to give a shout out tonight to two candidates that are running in the race this November. So there is a brand new resident candidates here. We have a Ward 2 School Committee resident who just put her paper in. Anna Jeffrey is in the audience. It's great. And we also have Ward 7 School Committee candidate Michelle Luong, who is in the audience. So I think that's great, and a big shout out to Malden High School Civics Group right here, who's always with us. We appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Councilor Anderson.
Thank you, Madam President. I've been asked to make sure that I announce that the North Shore Hispanic Association wants everyone to know that on Thursday, May 16th, this Thursday, from 6:30 to 8 p.m., at the First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church will be an immigration discussion panel taking place. And they want to put the word out there and suggest that community organizations, clergy, residents, and advocates, teachers, elected officials, and anyone wanting information about the issues around immigration should attend this discussion. Again, it's this Thursday, May 16th, from 6:30 to 8 o'clock at the First Parish Unitarian Universalist Church, 2 Elm Street, Malden. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Winslow.
Yeah, just a few things. I wanted to thank everybody who came out to Becca Fest this past Saturday along the bike trail. It was a beautiful day. We had probably 150, 200 people, families with young children come along the trail. sidewalk chalk, beanbag. I brought my basketball hoop down. Just a lot of fun to celebrate the life of Becca Knight, Malden High grad, and who was a very lively person, and who had unfortunately passed away. But it was just great to see that spirit, especially before Mother's Day. I also want to remind people that coming up, Memorial Day weekend's coming, and we are having several activities. There will be a dedication to Lance Corporal Thomas Moore, Jr. at Memorial Square at the corner of Belmont and Ferry Streets at 9 a.m. on Memorial Day, and that's Monday the 27th, and at 10 a.m. the Memorial Day parade will kick off from Salem and Ferry and Main Street. So hope everybody can come out and honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our city and our nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to just tell this is something very near and dear to my heart. Tell the public that Malden Overcoming Addiction is holding their 3rd annual #TogetherWeCan comedy night. It's this Thursday, the 16th also. Doors open at 6 o'clock. If you've ever been affected by the drug situation in your life, your family, your friends, etc., this is a great way. If you've wondered how to give back, tickets are $25. All the money, all the proceeds go to helping Malden Overcoming Addiction fight this awful scourge. Scourge is a good word in our community. So I know they'd like to pack the place. The comedians are fabulous. There'll be raffles, door prizes, etc. So if you don't have anything to do Thursday night, please come down, join Malden Overcoming Addiction in a great fundraiser, and let's help stamp this out in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Spatafora.
Thank you, Madam President. We want to follow up on Councilor DeMaria's Happy Mother's Day. Councilor Crow and Ward 1 School Committee member Michael Drummy threw a fantastic Mother's Day breakfast, the annual Ward 1 breakfast. They've been having it for how many years now? I think Gary started, right? The mayor started originally. So it's got to be at least get Councilor Cushing started, so I think it's probably the 15th year. Every year it gets better. I was lucky enough to attend with a couple of my fellow councilors. It was a great turnout. And I also want to remind the residents of Malden there is going to be, and don't quote me, I believe it's the Boston Wounded Motorcycle Race this weekend in Malden.
Wounded Vets, yep.
And it's going to, Wounded Warriors, I know there's a couple, that's why I apologize. It's going to start in the Revere Malden line at the Harley-Davidson shop. I don't know the exact route, I should, but there's 3,000 bikes, and it's going to be ending up in Canal Street in Malden. The reason why I mention it, it's 3,000 bikes going through the city Sunday. I'm sure it's going to stop some traffic. So if you haven't seen it, it's impressive. And if you've been in it at light, it's not that impressive, waiting for it to go by. But just be on the lookout. I think it's on the city, is it on the city? It's on Sunday. It ends from noon to 12. So it's going through the city of Malden between noon and 12, 3,000 bikes. Just be on the lookout.
What time does it end, Councilor Spatafora?
Ceremony
Ends at 2 with the ceremony at 4.
ends at 2 with a ceremony at 4 Canal Street.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kamel.
Thank you. Two things. I want to say thank you to the volunteers who came down for this this year's spring clean sweep down on Maplewood Square. We had a number of folks come down with their brooms and their bags. I cheated a little bit. I came down with my leaf blower and we blew stuff out into the street. And I also want to thank the DPW for coordinating with us so seamlessly. They came down and they swept the streets, picked up the bags, and also swept all of the streets of Ward 6 after coordinating with our residents to sweep the sidewalks out into the street. So that's great. It's a great way to sort of kick off the spring, get cleaned up, and spruce up the neighborhood. And we were all out there. It was a great day, sunny day, talking to each other, talking to folks walking by, talking to the businesses. So that's fantastic. The other thing I want to let people know about is Wednesday, May 29th is the first of two upcoming, Wednesday, May 29th, 7 p.m. at the Police Station Community Room at 800 Eastern Ave is the first of two upcoming public meetings to continue our conversation about the Trafton revitalization. As many of you may know, we were, the CPC awarded funds to start the design process to take it to a schematic design, and that includes holding some public meetings to further develop our scope of work by bringing in the public's viewpoint. We don't have, there aren't definitive decisions made. We're going to be doing that as a community together. So the first of the two meetings is May 29th, 7 p.m. at the police station. The following will be 2 weeks after that, again, Wednesday at 7 p.m. at the police station. I think that makes it June 3rd, something like that? No. Well, it's 2 weeks after May 29th, and I'll be announcing that here again to remind everybody. But come down. They're not alternates. It will be a continuation, so it will be basically part one, part two. So if you can make both, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Matheson.
Thank you once again, Chair. My colleagues have done a great job with all the announcements. Just a couple that are still out there. One I notice is the Malden Lions Club is having a fundraiser to benefit the Bread of Life at Sun Kong. Also on Thursday at 6:30, and I guess it's a ton of Chinese food. It's a 10-course Chinese food dinner with a 50-50 raffle, $40 per person. Proceeds benefit the Bread of Life. Obviously, that's a conflict with the Malden Overcoming Addiction, so you have your choice of fundraisers that night. Also, on this Saturday at 9 a.m., volunteers will be doing a park cleanup at Fellsmere Pond and Park. They will meet on 7th Street and Fellsmere Road by the picnic benches if you want to help out and clean up the park over there. It's wonderful that there's a group that does that. It's a beautiful park if you haven't been there. Also, I want to announce that I'm not running for re-election in Ward 3 after 8 years, so papers are available. They just became available this week. Councilor Winslow made a motion some time ago to move up that nomination period, so they are available a little bit early this year. So I want to encourage the community to put the word out, and I hope that democracy does its job. I took out papers today to run for mayor, and hold the applause, city councilors. No, but it has been a great honor to serve Ward 3, the ward where I was born and raised, and it's been a great pleasure to be a Malden City Councilor and serve with these wonderful people. And with that, those are all my announcements. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone have a motion to adjourn? On Councilor Murphy's motion to adjourn, all those in favor? All those opposed? The meeting is adjourned. Good night.